Okay, so this is the story of Marshall Amps and how they came to be. A long time ago, there's this place called Israel with a bunch of pedophiles in it, and they sat around raping children all the time. That's all they did, and they would they eventually they called it these cool trend, like back before English was invented. There's names for like sucking baby penis called circumcision, and so they eventually split those names off. Sucking baby penis and circumcision, playing with baby penis, circumcision. They told you that's health and science, and you can see that the baby penis suckers are Carl Sagan and the rest of the science crew. Elon Musk. Elon Musk's dad looks like Jeffrey Epstein pretty much. I mean, because they all look like they've been interbreeding for way too fucking long. They literally look like a bottle here that's been reproduced in a factory 1,000 times. That's why Jeffrey Epstein looks like Howard Stern, and Howard Stern looks exactly like Daryl Lynn, who is supposed to be a female and a male, and it's like, once you figure it out, you fucking figured it out. But anyway, so I suppose, like 2,000 years ago, they were sitting around. Like 6 of them had like 2 babies. They were like 6 months old. They were raping and sucking the peters of. And they're like, you know what? Like the babies are crying because they're raping them and sucking their penises. And, even a baby's not that stupid to think that's what should happen. And then they're like, we should make some music to attract the babies. The 6-year-olds, and they'll just, like the Pied Piper, they'll just come like rats to our doorstep, and they'll stop crying too, and they'll feel really good, and then we can give them some candy and some ice cream, and then we can, give them some special cream, some special 80-year-old dog eye cream, the type of cream that people should love the best, but they don't. And so then they're like, you know what we should do? We should make a musical instrument that attracts people. And they're like, well, we don't know how to make musical instruments because they've all been made already. And but it'd be easier just to make the sound of the musical instrument different. So they're like, okay. And then I guess they probably attempted a bunch of stuff like trying to put guitar strings in their penis holes. And in their buttholes, and they probably spent like a few months playing with each other like that, and then they're like, but this is fun, but it has nothing to do with us trying to manipulate music to attract 6-month-old boys into our harem. And other ones were like, it's been fun playing, sticking strings in you guys' butts and penises, but I don't think the sound has changed too much, and I'm not too sure the children would like that idea either. And what are people going to say if we walk around with guitar strings sticking out of our penises and our butts and like offering them to little kids? Those people are stupid, but they might figure something out sometime. And you're like, okay, so we're going to just change the sound now, and we can't do it like this. I know we want to. I know it's been fun the last 6 months. What we're going to do is we're going to change the sound. And they're like, how are you going to do that? And they're like, well, one of them like stuck their tongue to the guitar strings here, and then there's like, play it while my tongue is on this, and then so he starts playing, and the other one. With his tongue right there, he starts, after they're like, yeah, this sounds different. But then the one with his tongue right there starts trying to lick the fingers and stuff, and he's like, have you had your fingers in your butt? Because that's what it tastes like. That's so good. And then that 80-year-old guy about to die playing guitar was like, no, I had them in my dog's butt. And he's like, that's, the one with his tongue on the strings, like, that's really good. So they got distracted for another 6 months, licking their dogs' butts and licking each other's fingers after they stick them in the dog's butt. And so they had to go back to the drawing board. They were eventually like, well, you know what? Like, we're just like kind of keep hanging out with each other, and we're not attracting any 6-month olds. And so they had to go back to the drawing board, and they're like, how do we do this? How do we do it? How do we do it? How do we do it? And they're like, I don't know, man. How do we do it? And so they prayed to God, and God didn't answer them. In fact, God burnt their fucking house down. And then so they had like about a period of 12 months there where the creators of Marshall Amps had to build a little straw hut to live in or something, because they accidentally asked the wrong person for help after they did all the shit that they've done. And then so they continued with their nonsense and BS. And eventually, like, they came about, like, circuitry. I don't know. I suppose they, like, tried to rob a pyramid, and then they've seen something in there, and they figured out, like, hey, like, these things are, like, blueprints for other things going on in this world and stuff. And then, so they ended up making this amp. This must be, like, the first amp in the world, Marshall, the Marshall brand. And then, so, like, you know, we're just going to skip forward to the story. We got the cool part out of the way. You know, there's a lot more, but this video is getting long. So we're at 3.6 already. The limit, when I said that, isn't that odd? We're at 3.6, 6.31. 1 is me. 6 times 3 is 666. Anyways, all these numbers, every time I fucking point them out, they're there. Anyways, so they ended up designing this company called Marshall. And I suppose Marshall was like the name of the cutest 6-month-old boy that they've ever stuck their penis in. And so they probably like, you know, this reminds me, it was probably, if I recall right, it was the name of the first boy that their sound attracted, like a Pied Piper, you know. They were just playing the music, and then like rats, toddlers started showing up on the doorstep and coming in their house, like wondering what that sound was, and they're like, yeah, you know, Jeffrey Epstein's great grandpa was like, yeah, now we've got it, and everyone else is like, yes, now we've got it. Get the non-alcoholic beer out. We're about to have a party. There's a bunch of toddlers on our doorstep. It's like, it's party time. He's going to play all this hardcore music. And then so the first boy came up, and you know, they did their thing with him. And 2 days later, the boy like crawled out of the house, and his mother was like walking around looking for it. And it was like, Marshall, 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 where are you? And then they come up, you know, on the bleeding toddler and can barely crawl and all that stuff. I mean, it's 6 months old. It can't do anything. But it's bleeding excellently at this point. So it crawls out, and they hear the mother growling. It's like, Marshall, Marshall. And then they're like, ooh, it's Marshall. The name's Marshall. And they're like, you know, that's actually like what we should name this, and we should start selling, because Marshall is beautiful. We love Marshall. Marshall is so good. And so they start naming it. And so now we have Marshall. And let me demonstrate for you just how much effort they put into making this sound good. This is pretty much any Marshall amp. This is why I do not play on any Marshall amp ever when I go into a store. Check this out. This is a full distortion on a Marshall amp. As you can hear, we're at full distortion to the point where there's static feedback. So we're about to rock out, right? We're going to go Van Halen 5150 on better than a 12-inch crate Blue Voodoo stack, you know, like Van Halen and anyone else. Marty Friedman uses. This is Marshall, bro. This is what douchebag Daryl fucking played on, if I remember right, before he fucking got shot in the city I'm from because he was stealing music, apparently. And so, but now, you know, to leave that off on an honest tip, he clearly was using way more fucking pedals and effects than this garbage puts out. Because check this out, this is garbage. See, that's garbage. Like, let's turn down the volume. We're going to turn down the volume, not even the tone, and the distortion is going to go completely away. So it's at like 10 right now, and we're going to turn it down. Let's turn it down one notch and see what happens, because it's garbage the second it goes down a half notch. Okay, that's one notch down. It's two. Let's go down two more. Fucking the neighbor's dog, playing monster ants all day long. Fucking my cousin and the neighbor's dog. And the police made some laws where I can't fuck the neighbor's newborns on the neighbor's lawn. I've got the blues now. Got my neighbor's dog. Got my but what I don't have is my neighbor's newborn. Fuck the police. Create the ADL to protect my penis and my There we go. See, that's Marshall amp. Straight garbage. You might have heard it in every other video I've made. There's no tone that is that garbage. This is just the most garbage thing ever. When I go into stores, I will try out anything. There's this dude, Glenn Fricker, Line 6. And he's always talking, Glenn Fricker, SMG Media. He's always talking crap about Line 6 amps. And you know what? Like, if you even know how to play a fucking guitar at all, really, you probably already figured out Marshall is garbage. It's the worst garbage you could ever frickin' buy, unless you're trying to sound like you're trying to make music about raping your cousin, you don't have to rape your cousin. Your cousin wants to fuck you since you were born. Raping the neighbor's dog, raping the neighbor's newborn, and gangbanging them with your cousin, unless you want that type of tone coming from your guitar. And it's up to you what tone you want coming from your guitar. But unless you want that tone coming out of your instrument, I recommend not buying Marshall, because it's just pure garbage. Like, I've got this, listen to that. You got this buzz. Just, no one wants to hear that garbage. But it's Marshall. It's a beautiful 6-year-old boy. The boy's going daddy, mommy, and can't even say mommy yet. It's still like gaga, goo goo, gaga. And so I think that's what they're doing here, is they're trying to emulate the nonsensical noise that the 6-month-old Marshall that they had as a sex slave for a few days was doing. Like, that's probably where it all comes from. Like, they're like, yeah, it's a really good sound. You know, the baby's just sitting around going, making, just like farting and filling its fucking diaper with diarrhea all day. It's like, there we go. That's the sound. That's the sound of Marshall, bro. I said, listen to it scream. It can't even scream. Pretty much the sound of an 80-year-old raping a fucking 6-month-old. I mean, yeah, sex with a fucking normal person, they're gonna be screaming like crazy and shit. But if you're 80 years old, you're about dead. And if your pride and joy is, if your average sex is with a 6-month-old named Marshall, you know, a toddler, then you probably aren't very well, you know, versed in how to have sex. So you ain't making no one scream. And the little baby's just sitting around still doing diarrhea and farts on your penis and stuff. So there we have. That is the birth of Marshall Amps and how that happened, bro. Thank you for watching. And maybe Sunday I will do a video on the birth of these generic looking guitars that all look the same, and however much I've got to like figure. I want to like be scientific about it. I want to figure out how much of each drug they were on when they thought that was a cool shape. And until then, don't buy Marshall. Buy anything else. I don't. These people are selling you garbage, dude. You know, some of these people like Herman Lee from Dragon Force, we have them on video doing Milli Vanilli, where they're faking their show, and we know Van Halen doesn't fake the show because he's just jumping around like a clown, and you can't like record that and then replay that. So be careful who you listen to about this stuff, and be careful of Marshall. Don't be careful on Marshall. Like, it's the people who kidnap Marshall that are the problem. Marshall's might have grown up to be a good kid, but you know, the people who make this crap with this annoying feedback that has absolutely. Why is there so much feedback right there? Can anyone tell me that? Because this is supposed to be distortion level feedback. If I get the feedback this loud, my guitar should sound like a knife, like a chainsaw cutting through a freaking tree and stuff. Except for the chainsaw is like samurai swords and not a chain. It's samurai sword saw, right? Electric samurai sword saw. That's what it's supposed to sound like if you get that much feedback. But this is Marshall, and I guess that's what 6 months old sound like when you kidnap them and do 80-year-old pedophile things with them. So Marshall, the amp you should never buy.